Good afternoon. I want to start by saying from all of us, I think I speak perhaps for Mr. Shiner as well, but also for the court and the family members and everybody who's been here, thank you so much. I know we promised you a lot when we started this process about how quickly this was going to go, how many hours you'd have to wait each morning, how much you would have to put up with throughout the entirety of this. And you have given of your time, you have listened, you've paid attention despite all the delays and everything that we've thrown at you. So literally from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. I want to start this conversation with you by talking about something that is obvious to all of us, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page. This case has never been about domestic violence between Mr. Rudolph and his girlfriend. This case has never been about domestic violence. So we spent a lot of time talking about the anatomy of this relationship and what was going on that day. But this case comes down to something very important. Murder begins where self-defense ends. You will see as I go through my presentation here with you that the state will not allege that Mr. Rudolph did not have a right to be upset that night. You will see as we go through the presentation that there will not be an allegation that it's ever okay for people to just show up to their house in the middle of the night. It's not illegal, but I could see, everybody could see, how that would make somebody upset. I want to start with what started the calls to law enforcement that day. Murder begins where self-defense ends. After the rounds of shots that we just heard in that shot spotter audio, the following happened to that black Cadillac. There was a gunshot defect into the upper right corner of the rear window. The driver's side window, another impact. The driver's door window, another impact. The driver's door window, another impact. The driver's door window, another impact. Right front headlights impacted. Passenger side A-pillar impacted. Passenger side view mirror housing impacted. Right front passenger door window 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 impacted. Right front passenger door impact. Right front passenger door window impacted. Right front passenger door. 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 Those are separate impacts. Right front fender. Right front passenger door, twice again. Right rear passenger door window. Right rear passenger door window again. Right rear passenger door window. passenger side B pillar, passenger side C pillar. 30 total defects to the exterior of this black Cadillac, housing 4 men. As we now know, Sebastien Jean-Jacques died as a result of this. We also know Tyler, who was inside the vehicle, got struck twice in his back and once in his hip as he was running out of the vehicle and running away. The other 2, they don't have visible scars, but you saw them for yourself on the witness stand. You want to talk about dealing with trauma and being unable or unable to do things that day? Imagine trying to pull your friends away while that many shots are being fired at you. Imagine trying to navigate through a 3-point turn because of the way your vehicle was pointed, as shots are shelling through your vehicle, through the windshield, through the doors. Real life happened for Keyshawn Jones, Christopher Lowe, Sebastien Jean-Jacques, and Tyler Robinson on that day. And I ask that as you return to deliberate and think about all the things that you will be asked to consider, remember this. Why do we stand when you walk in the room? All of us. We stand because you are the judge. It is a matter of respect. It is also a matter of honor to sit as jurors of peers and decide an issue. Issue in this case, at the time that Travis Rudolph picked up that 6R, decided to shoot, did he have a legal justification to do so? Next, I want to draw your attention to the 911 call. That, for the record, is States 50. Shot spotter was States 51. You heard it at the beginning of this case. Listen to it now after you've heard everything.
We need an ambulance. Where are you? We're on 40th Street and I don't know, we're in North Lake, 40th Street and Broadway? Broadway, yeah, 40th Street, Broadway.
What's going on?
We have someone who's shot. He has a DSW.
He's shot?
He's not moving. Yes, he's not moving.
All
He's
right,
shot.
let me get the medical line. 1 moment.
Please hurry.
Yeah, I'm dropping it now. It's West Palm, 40th and Broadway, getting male shot. He's not moving.
Do we know where he was shot? What part of his body?
I'm not sure. I can't tell. But he's not,
Okay.
He's not moving.
And he's the only one that's injured there?
He's the only one that's shot. Yes, please.
Okay. We have help on the way to you. We're sending police and paramedics. And you say you can't tell where on his body he was shot, right?
I can't tell.
All right. And you say you rolled up here on 40th Street.
40th and Broadway, there's a gas station, a van auto park, something. 40th Street and Broadway.
Okay, again, is he on 40th Street or on Broadway?
We are on 40th Street and Broadway, the intersection. I hear police sirens.
All right. West Palm will stay for you. Let us know when.
All right, no problem, sir. Did you see the person who shot him?
Travis Rudolph.
Sir, he pulled off?
No, his name is Travis Rudolph. He shot at him.
Travis Rudolph shot at him?
Yes.
Okay, is he black or Hispanic, Travis?
Black.
What was he wearing today?
I don't even know. He came out the house in no shirt.
Okay, what house does he live at? He lives at 40th and Broadway?
No, he lives in Northlake somewhere. I'm not sure.
Off like North Lake and up the past Riviera?
Like Lake Park, I don't know. Please, I think
Okay, well, I understand they're going to come help in the medics turn around as well, but you're saying Travis Rudolph shot him here, so was he in a car?
He shot him around his neighborhood. He came outside with the gun and shot at him. Shot at us. He shot at all of us.
Okay, but where did that happen? You guys drove to this location?
Yes, we were trying to get to the hospital, and we came down the street, and the car stopped working.
Okay, Northlake. Are you shot as well, sir?
I don't think I'm shot. I'm not shot. Just him.
Okay, do you know Travis's address?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, so you guys were hanging out at his house, he came outside, shot at you guys, and you drove to this location?
We came to talk to him. He came outside trying to fight. We were trying to get to the car, and he went back into the house, got a gun, came outside. We were in the car driving away, and he started to shoot at us.
Okay, Mel. How many other people are with you right now?
2, and my friend who was with us, I don't know where he's at. We drove away as soon as he started shooting. Yes, please.
Okay, you see the police?
Yes, we see the police.
All right, go ahead and flag them down, okay?
We flagged him down. Please. Right here. He's in the passenger. Please. Oh my gosh, I love you, bro. I love you.
That is not the voice of someone who spent time stopping to throw away firearms. That is not the voice of someone who didn't care about getting his friend to a hospital. That's the voice of a man who is terrified about what he just experienced and that his best friend, who's sitting right next to him, is now dead. What does murder begins where self-defense ends mean? It is unlawful to use or continue to use deadly force when the attacker or intruder is no longer an imminent threat. In Florida, self-defense instruction is called the justifiable use of deadly force. It has both an objective and a subjective component, and we'll talk about that. Justifiable use of deadly force is the instruction that you will likely spend a lot of time on, so I'll talk to you about it here. It reads, Travis Rudolph was justified in using deadly force if he reasonably believed that such force was necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or another, or the imminent commission of attempted murder, aggravated battery, or aggravated assault against himself or another. And then it defines what deadly force is, which you probably didn't need. Yeah, it's the kind of force likely to cause death or great bodily harm. The kind from shooting a firearm. In the instructions, it wants you to consider the following. In deciding whether Travis Rudolph was justified in the use of deadly force, you must consider the circumstances by which he was surrounded at the time the force was used. Here's a subjective standard. The danger need not have been actual. However, to justify the use of deadly force, the appearance of imminent danger must have been so real that Travis Rudolph actually believed the use of deadly force was necessary. Here's the objective standard. Moreover, to justify the use of deadly force, a reasonably cautious and prudent person under the same circumstances would have had to believe the use of deadly force was necessary. So it's not just about what Mr. Rudolph was thinking. It is also about what a reasonable, objective person thought was reasonable and necessary under the circumstances. Initial aggressor. Why is this important? Well, if a person in the state of Florida starts a fight, starts an issue with someone, and then that person simply reacts to it, that potentially could be self-defense. However, If the initial aggressor, the person who started it all, clearly shows an intent to remove themselves from the violence, but the person who the force was used against first decides they're not done and would like to continue the violence, that's where we have the problem. Is this aggression? Is it? That will be the question before you. You seem to be speaking calmly. Can I speak to Travis? Gotta holler at him. And we know, perhaps at the beginning, the notion that someone could possibly be wanting to speak to someone in the middle of the night sounded ridiculous. But then we heard more about the story. These people aren't strangers. They call each other little bro and big bro. They know each other. They go to family events together. They are not strangers. We also know that Keyshawn Jones made 6 separate attempts to speak, one of which, according to the records, was rejected. So the fact that Mr. Jones went over there to talk with his friends is not out of the realm of possibilities, not based on what the evidence shows us. We also know a fight happened outside where no weapon is used. How do we know that? I know you heard differently, so you're like, tell me, Miss State Lady. Let's look at the evidence. First part that's cut off there is independent witness Mr. Estes saw no guns. He's watching this fight, enough so that he's like, oh, trouble is going to break here. I'm thinking perhaps I should get my gun, just in case it gets wild. But he did not see any firearms. He testified to that fact. Then the red video clip shows no guns at the time that the defendant says he saw the firearm. You remember during his cross-examination, as Mr. Rudolph was up there, had it paused to look at what was going on at the time he's making his way into the residence. No guns. Tyler Robinson testified that the gun remained zipped in his pant pocket. And you know, at first when he said that, some people might have been thinking, well, isn't that unlikely? Isn't it unlikely that you brought the gun and forgot it was there because you got into this fight and then the shooting happened and you just simply forgot it was there, and then you listen to the circumstances? He got into a fight out at 550 Teague Drive. It was a physical fight. Fists, kicks, hits. He even admitted that at one point he did try to choke the defendant. He admitted all those things. And he said his gun remained in the zipper pocket because he didn't go there with the intention to try to shoot anybody. He didn't want to. And you know, you can believe a lot of things or disbelieve a lot of things, but then you have to look at what actually takes place after. Mr. Robinson never shoots back. This is the person that they claimed is sent over there to shoot his shit up and actually kill him. He never, even when shots are coming through the windshield, instead he lays on top of his friend and gets the bullets into him. Perhaps he's a hero. Because he managed to stay cool to keep that firearm in his pocket. He managed to put his body over another person so they wouldn't be struck. Keyshawn Jones and Christopher Lowe also testified there were no guns. It was a fist fight. Even Linda Rudolph, she didn't see any guns because there were no guns out there. Darryl Rudolph also didn't see the guns out there. There are no guns involved in this fist fight out front. So let's look at the circumstances under which Mr. Rudolph grabbed that assault rifle. Travis, no. Come on, please. Travis, no. Please, please. Travis, no. That's his mother. Because Mr. Rudolph has now escalated what was a physical fight to introduce a firearm. How does Daryl get down Redwood? It's an interesting question. It also forms the basis for another interesting question, which is, are you defending yourself, or are you pursuing people that you think have wronged you? Are you? We already saw the map. This is where Mr. Rudolph lived and where the shooting scene occurred. On the map, you have it in evidence, states 1. Everybody else is indicating that that fight happened closer to the house up here, which makes sense, and I'll show you why in a little bit. So then how do they get all the way from up here to all the way down there if they weren't pursuing the young men as they ran away? What's this? This is all 7 individuals on camera. Keyshawn Jones with his hoodie, Daryl Rudolph with his white t-shirt. Then you see persons, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 4 young men that came to that house. Then there's Daryl Rudolph, Mrs. Rudolph, and Travis Rudolph. All 7 accounted for. What point in the video is this? Mr. Rudolph is making his way into the house before he grabs the assault rifle. There's no fight happening, ladies and gentlemen. It stopped. Everybody is calmed down. He escalated it. This now is Mr. Rudolph after he's exited the residence with the assault rifle and slips. White t-shirt. Daryl. Didn't realize he was in that video, right? He's there. He's not down the street. He's right there at the corner of the front lot. At the beginning of the Ring video, something interesting happens. You hear a male voice say twice, he's going in the house. There's so much happening on that video. But listen again. I'm going to just back up so we can get to that. I'll let you. He's going in the house. He's going in the house. Keyshawn Jones testified that he started yelling that to his friends as he started headed down Redwood. Why? Because they're all concerned about what Mr. Rudolph would come out of that house with. So they all start making their way down to the car. Keyshawn, Chris, Sebastien start hurrying down Redwood. Tyler is the only one that remains and is confronted with that assault rifle. Everybody else runs off. Tyler, no gun in his hand. You got that, you got that. Even Mr. Rudolph had to admit to him that means I'm surrendering. So how did Daryl get down Redwood? It's clear both Sebastien and Chris try to leave after he's going into the house, but are delayed by Daryl at the tree near the house. Daryl, for reasons unknown, follows them instead of remaining at home. Now, according to Daryl's testimony, Daryl said he went down on Redwood to create distance between himself and the 2 men, that's Sebastien and Chris, during the fight. But it's unreasonable that it would be Daryl's only option. As you can see clearly in that video, there was no one around him when Mr. Rudolph came out of that residence. He made his way down there of his own volition. People testified, nobody dragged him down there. Nobody pulled him down there. And we know even later that night, Daryl is still pursuing people he shouldn't pursue. Daryl is definitely not dragged down that street. How did Travis Rudolph end up down on Redwood? Well, he said he turns his attention to Daryl after Tyler runs to the car. So basically after the Ring video we just watched, you got this, Tyler books it and starts running back to the car. Mr. Rudolph's own testimony is that Tyler keeps running. He even passes where Daryl is and runs to the car. Then Travis Rudolph says he sees his brother. And before he can even reach him, ladies and gentlemen, this is his own testimony. 40 to 50 feet before he even reaches Daryl, he realizes that all the men that were fighting with Daryl run off back to the car. He hasn't even gotten to wherever Daryl has ended up. So how does he get all the way to being in front of the car that he sees firearms? It's because he followed them. He pursued them. In the state of Florida, you are allowed to stand your ground. In the state of Florida, you do not have a duty to retreat if somebody is coming at you in a place you have a right to be. But you do not, ladies and gentlemen, get to pursue people and then claim self-defense. Let's take a look at this video. It is not the clearest. It really isn't. But it is the best window we have into what actually happened and how it happened. You start seeing the little shadows. I'm not telling you can tell who every single person is. But if you pay long enough attention, you can see the four figures make it back to the car and the rear lights come on and start moving before that flash comes on. The car actually backs up, not drives forward. They are trying to leave. They have signaled they do not wish to continue any violence. And Mr. Rudolph cannot take that for an answer. He shoots 39 times, 39, into this vehicle as it moves and drives away. That is not self-defense. By the time the defendant starts shooting, the Cadillac has already moving away. It has reversed, and then poor Keyshawn, under these conditions, trying to make that three-point turn to get away. It's 11 a.m. First muzzle flash. Cars already on and backing up. Look how far Mr. Rudolph is from that vehicle. Saw firearms, my foot. Didn't see any firearms. Couldn't have. That is a tinted window on the side of that car. Could not have seen it. Why is he even down there, ladies and gentlemen? Why is he down there but to pursue? So let's talk about what Mr. Rudolph could or couldn't have seen, based on just common sense things that we know about the area, the dark video we were looking at, and the circumstances of the lighting. This area of Redwood is dark enough. There are some street lights, I'll give you that, but they're not so bright that they're illuminating everything that we can see every single person. The interior light of the Cadillac is clearly not on. Cadillac has tinted windows. We heard that testified to by the person that was driving it, but also by the CSI, and we see it for ourselves on the pictures. Sebastien actually barely makes it into the car. He had just slammed the door when that car starts moving, and then Mr. Rudolph started shooting. He doesn't have time to find a firearm. Given the distance between the defendant and the car, it literally is extremely unlikely that he saw anything inside that vehicle. If defendant claims a gun was pointed at him by Sebastien. Well, isn't that convenient? Well, you gotta have to explain why you shot that one person in particular so many times. Let's talk about evidence of a firearm. Tyler's gun is found that night. Everybody knows that. Tyler admits the gun was on him and in his pocket. And ladies and gentlemen, a very important fact that I think goes amiss in the conversation about do you have to wait for someone to shoot you to shoot back? No, you don't have to wait. But if somebody else has a gun out, ready to go, they're gonna fire back after that 39 shots being fired at them. It defies logic, honestly. Sebastien's hands. Was he holding a firearm? Bulges in the pockets. Let's talk about it. So the first photo you saw had Sebastien's hand looking like this. Defense experts said firearm likely in Sebastien's hand. Could be nothing. Could be another item. Then Dr. Osborne from the medical examiner's office testified that Sebastien had a spinal injury. So that's going to have an impact on how his body rests. Then Sebastien not in full rigor mortis. So if an item was in fact taken from his hand, according to Dr. Osborne, it would just lay in whatever natural state it was in. It wouldn't keep its form because he's not in full rigor mortis, such that you can get the gun out and it just remains there. The hand consistent with holding nothing at all. Well, let's look at that. Isn't it weird how perspective changes things? You want to see a firearm in somebody's hand when there's no firearm there? You can, depending on the angle of the photo. But this is Sebastien's hand. Just looks like it fell. This is Sebastien's hand. It just looks like it fell. It really is pure speculation that the defendant could not only have seen one gun in Sebastien's hand, but the unlikely event that he could see two guns, to include the one in Tyler's hand. And let me talk about that for a second. Perhaps feasible that you can see a gun pointed at you through a windshield. I'll give you that if you're close enough, although he wasn't. But how do you see the muzzle of a gun that is not being fired in the dark, in the crack, on the other side of a car? How do you see that? How do you see that? You do not. The defendant received the discovery in the case. He had the pleasure of sitting and listening to everybody else's testimony. You have to put a gun in the hand of the people who you shot. You just have to. Well, we knew Tyler had a gun. That wasn't a mystery. So now let's make something about this hand posture. Defendant expert was paid $600 an hour to say it could have been a gun and it could have been nothing at all. But even he had to admit it could have been nothing at all. What about the bulges? What about the bulges? What about the bulges? Bulge here, that's Chris Lowe. He said, I had my phone in my pocket. Why should you believe him? Well, we know he had a phone in his pocket. That's the phone that was used to make that 911 call we listened to. Sebastien's over here, but he also had some type of bulge in the front pocket. And we know Tyler, you can't even see a bulge in his pocket, and he actually does have a gun. Chris testified that the bulge was his phone. And we know it's the same phone he used to make that 911 call, which is completely consistent with the rest of the evidence in the case. That he would have had it on his person so that after the shooting, he can reach for it to be able to call 911. Sebastien had 2 sets of keys that were found in his front right pocket. There was no evidence found in his pocket or anywhere near him that it was a firearm. What is reasonable doubt? Reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt. It is not speculative. It is not imaginary, and it certainly is not forced doubt. Such a doubt should not, must not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. I want to talk about a very important instruction. Justifiable use of deadly force. This is another part of it. The use or threatened use of deadly force is not justified if you find that Travis Rudolph used force or the threat of force to initially provoke the threatened use of force against him. So earlier I was talking about initial aggressors. Clearly, we're not there anymore because that's not where this shooting happened. I'm talking about down on Redwood. How do you get all the way down there? Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, even under the unlikely circumstances that they had firearms and in fact pointed them, think about what those men would have seen. This firearm. Big one, Sig Sauer. With the drum. Heavy thing, by the way. You're allowed to touch things. Coming at them from somebody who's running towards them or walking towards them. Somebody they're trying to escape. Someone whom they're literally trying to flee. They would have had every right to turn guns on him at that moment. But ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that did not happen. They did not have time. They didn't have time. They got in that car, the car started moving, and they were screeching away, or trying to. It is not justifiable use of deadly force. That is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. At the time Mr. Rudolph is firing his gun, what is going on that he is protecting himself from? Isn't he the one that's initiating? If he's running all the way down to Redwood where they are? Isn't he the one that is pursuing and not, quote, defending? They are trying to run away. I want to talk to you now about the charges. First count, first-degree murder. The state must prove elements of first-degree murder beyond a reasonable doubt. Here are the elements. The victim is dead. Well, we know Sebastien Jean-Jacques is dead, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. The death was caused by the criminal act of the defendant. We know that because it's not justified. There was a premeditated killing of the victim, and I'll talk to you about the ways you can assess whether or not something is premeditated. Sebastien Jean-Jacques is dead. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I noticed it as we were going through the jury instructions as well. Sometimes Sebastian's name is spelled here with an I-A-N, like I have done here. His name is actually spelled with an I-E-N, and we'll have that corrected for the verdict form. But we all know who we're talking about, Sebastien Jean-Jacques. Sebastian's lifeless body is discovered at 40th and Broadway. According to the medical examiner, his spinal cord was transected. He had lacerated liver and a bunch of other things that he talked to us about. Cause of death was the 10 gunshot wounds, but of course that particular one penetrating to his torso. Beyond a reasonable doubt, Sebastien Jean-Jacques is dead. Unfortunately. Element number 2. Sebastien Jean-Jacques' death was caused by the criminal act of Travis Rudolph. That has also been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. You can hear the car, and then you can hear the shooting. They are leaving. They are leaving. Let them leave, Mr. Rudolph. Revenge. To exact punishment or wrongdoing, especially in a resentful or vindictive spirit, to take vengeance, to inflict punishment, avenge, the act of revenging, retaliation for injuries or wrongs, something done in revenge, a desire to retaliate. He had lost a fight. I'll grant you this, it was not a fair fight. 4 men came over to his house and they were ready for whatever he wanted to do. And they fist fought outside. Tyler, like I said, admitted, yeah, at one point I choked him because I saw him on top of Keyshawn. They were fighting. And you saw his injuries. He had some cuts and scrapes and bruises. Some of the others testified about their cuts, scrapes, and bruises. What you will not hear is broken legs, broken femurs, broken throats, slit throats, or anything that involves a weapon or serious bodily injury. So let me put not just self-defense, but the rest of some of the defenses that you've heard in context. There's a section that will talk to you about excusable homicides. The killing of a human being is excusable and therefore lawful under any one of the following 3 circumstances. When the killing is committed by accident and misfortune in doing any lawful act by lawful means using ordinary care without unlawful intent. That's not this. We know Mr. Rudolph knew exactly what he was doing and he did just that. 2, when the killing occurs by accident or misfortune in the heat of passion upon any sudden and sufficient provocation. I want to talk about that one a little bit. I'm sure you heard the heat of passion instruction as the judge was reading it, and I want to talk to you about what that is intended for. It is not intended for a fist fight in the front of somebody's home. It is intended for the kind of thing that causes a regular human being to lose all logical sense. What am I talking about? You walk into a room and your 4-year-old daughter is being raped by somebody. You completely lose your mind and you kill that person. That is heat of passion. You walk into the room and your wife is having sex with somebody. You completely lose your mind. That is heat of passion. Something that causes you to completely lose your senses. You're not making proper judgments about whether or not guns are being pointed or not being pointed. You're not making proper judgments about the distances between places and things. You have lost your mind because of the things you have experienced or seen. That is heat of passion. And heat of passion has 5 parts. Every single one of them, like all the other elements, must exist for it to be so. We'll get to it later. When a killing is committed by accident, misfortune, resulting from a sudden combat, if a dangerous weapon is not used, again, not the circumstances of this one. Heat of passion. All 5 elements, A, B, C, D, and E, all end with an and then, of course, last one. First one. An issue in this case, whether Travis Rudolph did or did not have a depraved mind, and also you'll see it there for the premeditation. Why? Because heat of passion is not a full defense. It is a partial defense. It's a defense against the intent requirement of crimes. And so its focus is not going to be manslaughter or some of the other types of charges. It's like first-degree murder that requires premeditation. It's like second-degree murder that requires depraved mind, you know? So it's focused on intent. So the instructions are very similar except for the language here, which either talks about premeditation or depraved mind. So we'll focus then on just the elements. There must have been a sudden event that would have suspended the exercise of judgment in an ordinary, reasonable person. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. The stuff that changes you from a regular human to an animalistic one, where you are going on pure emotion and feeling. The kind of stuff that drives a person so crazy that they cannot logically function or think. Not a fist fight. Not a fist fight. Okay, a reasonable person would have lost normal self-control, would have been driven by a blind and unreasoning fury. That's what I'm talking about. Unreasoning fury. Because guess what? You walk into that room and that stuff is happening. You're not thinking about consequences. You're not thinking about anything other than getting it to stop. C, there was not a reasonable amount of time for a reasonable person to cool off. So even if, for some reason, you're like, well, I think people showing up to your house in the middle of the night could be this kind of thing, which I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, it's not. It's not intended for that kind of combat. It's intended for the kind of thing that drives you out of your mind. But even if you thought it was, look at C. No time to cool off. It's done. Before he even goes into the house for the assault, they're running away back to the car. It's done. There is a reasonable amount of time for somebody to cool off and chill out. D, a reasonable person would not have cooled off. So this isn't just Rudolph now and how he's feeling. This is a reasonable person, objective standard portion of the heat of passion. Reasonable person under the same circumstances, oh, thank God they're finally leaving. Let me go back in and call 911. E, Travis Rudolph was in fact so provoked and did not cool off before he committed. So all 5 would have had to be present. But you don't even start here because you don't have unreasoning fury, the kind of thing that causes a person to completely black out, lose their mind. Element number 2, Travis Rudolph pursued fleeing subjects. Victims got in their vehicle, reversed, and were then hit with a spray of gunfire. That has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt because that's not people just saying it, that's us seeing it with our own eyes in the video. Revenge is not self-defense. Travis Rudolph, like I said, had a right to be angry. Show up to anybody's house in the middle of the night, especially getting into their relationship and telling them what they can or can't do. You're a grown person, absolutely you have the right to be angry. Travis Rudolph also did not have to retreat. He's at his house. He doesn't have to run away back into his house at the time that he's opening that door. No, he could have stood there. He could have stepped outside and had a fight with them on his own lawn. Absolutely. He did not have a duty to run back inside at that point. However, Travis had no right to pursue fleeing subjects. The minute you think that you can play judge, juror, and executioner, the minute that happens, therein lies the problem. People can really, 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 really cause you to lose it, and you become angry enough that you think you have the right to do whatever you want, but that is not the law in the state of Florida. If they are running away from you, if they have signaled that they wish to stop the violence by literally turning their backs, running and jumping in a car that's trying to get away, you can't keep shooting. You can't start shooting. Let's talk about premeditation. It's element number 3. And you'll see that I'm speaking primarily about Sebastien Jean-Jacques here as I talk about this element, but of course premeditation also applies to the other charges because it's attempted first-degree murder as it relates to Tyler, Keyshawn, and Chris. Premeditation, what is it? Killing with premeditation is killing after consciously deciding to do so. You have made up your mind. I would like to kill this person, or I want to kill this person, or I need to kill this person, whatever your thoughts are. I need to eliminate this person. The decision must be present in the mind at the time of the killing. The law does not fix the exact period of time that must pass between the formation of the premeditated intent to kill and the killing. Why? Because some people do it for months. Some people do it for years. Some people do it for days. Some people do it for minutes. Some people do it for seconds. But the end result is the problem. Killing someone when you've decided that they should die. The period of time, however, must be long enough to allow reflection by the defendant. So it can't just be, oh, go shoot their shit up, but nothing's actually happening to make that happen. The person has to actually have a thought, I want to kill the person, and then go about making it happen and have that time to reflect. The premeditated intent to kill must be formed before the killing. The question of premeditation is a question of fact to be determined by who? You. You're the judge of the fact. This judge in the robe gives you the law. You decide what the facts are in this case. It will be sufficient proof of premeditation if the circumstances of the killing and the conduct of the accused convince you beyond a reasonable doubt of the existence of premeditation at the time of the killing. Where does premeditation come from? We talked about some of these things in jury selection. It's the circumstances of what's happening immediately before, during, and after. It is the nature of the weapon used. Why this one instead of that one? Why a rock instead of a gun? Why a gun instead of a knife? The presence or absence of adequate provocation. It is not okay to take a gun to a fist fight. Previous difficulties between the parties. The manner in which the homicide itself was committed. Is this one shot to the head? Is this 39 shots? It matters. The nature and manner of the wounds inflicted. Is this clearly indicating that the individuals were trying to get away? Yeah, like Travis Rudolph is shooting here, and Tyler Robinson is getting bullets to his back. Sebastien Jean-Jacques, as according to the medical examiner, most of those were from the back. Whether the initial aggressor removed himself from the conflict. Whether or not there is any break in time between the initial provocation and then what happens. Those are all things you get to consider. My favorite thing, your favorite thing, everybody's favorite thing, videos. Why? Because they don't lie. They are what they are in the moment they're capturing. The defendant claims he ran into the house to get his assault rifle because he saw Tyler pull out a gun. Video clearly disproves that. I ask him, show me, where? Where is he with the firearm? It's not possible. Video does not lie. Daryl and Travis Rudolph claim that they were further down on Redwood, but the evidence and other testimony disproves that. Daryl's still on video after Rudolph outside with the gun that I showed you, that image with him over on the corner of the front lawn. Tyler is the only person still visible, but he is further away, backing into the street. Nobody's preventing Daryl from coming back home. Video proves no reason for Daryl to go down that street. He pursued them as they were fleeing. Video does not lie. Before Travis Rudolph even gets to his brother, all the men have run back to the car door. The door then closes, and the vehicle immediately starts moving. Travis Rudolph isn't even in frame yet. He's not even close enough yet. And then you see him, and then he starts shooting. He's clearly the one moving forward as that vehicle is backing up. Clearly. Video doesn't lie. The video does not lie. The defendant starts shooting after the vehicle had started backing up and moving away. Why do I keep stressing this, ladies and gentlemen? Because it is important. How can you claim that there is a threat to you? You must do this. You must be judge, jury, and executioner if they are getting away from you. If they are moving away from you, how do you prove necessity? How do you say it absolutely is necessity? I had to do it. I had no choice when they are getting away from you. Defendant claims he thought vehicle was coming at him. Well, the video disproves that possibility. It's clearly backing up. The video doesn't lie, ladies and gentlemen. The defendant claims he wanted the men to get away from him. It is literally what they are doing in the video. The video and the testimony corroborate they ran away. They got to the car. The car was leaving before the shooting even started. The video is damning on this issue. Shot spotter audio also doesn't lie. Defendant claims he wanted the men to get away from him. Shot spotter audio can hear the engine before even a single sound of the gunshots, indicating the car started moving and was in fact leaving, just like we can see on the video. That is also damning. 5 minutes. Thank you. Evidence of premeditation. The defendant here had an interesting choice of weapons. Defendant, as we know, had 2 guns. A handgun that we know was fully loaded in his dresser. He was more familiar with it, carried it. It's actually the one he carries concealed to Miami as he trains, as we heard numerous times. Then he had this assault rifle in his bag in the same room. Defendant selected the gun with maximum firepower and 100 rounds. That choice was not about self-defense. As we saw, nobody else had a gun out. He hadn't even seen any guns pulled in. Premeditated. Choice of guns. Pursuing people as they're trying to run away. Literally, your claim that they're coming towards you, completely disproven. Premeditated. He wanted to, quote, eliminate. Then there's attempted first-degree murder, also has 3 elements. And I noticed on some of your packets, it said 2 elements. It's 3. Anything first-degree murder is 3, even the attempted ones. So just correct that when you go back there. You'll see the 3, the numbered 3. Okay, Travis Rudolph did some act intended to cause the death of Tyler, Keyshawn, and Chris. I've put them together here for ease of discussion. That went beyond just thinking and talking about it. Yeah, well, we've certainly gone beyond that. That's proven beyond a reasonable doubt. 2, Travis Rudolph acted with a premeditated design. We just discussed the premeditation. Why shoot them in the back? Why shoot them as they're leaving? Why even go down there? 3, the act would have resulted in the death of Tyler, Keyshawn, or Chris, except for someone prevented Travis Rudolph from killing them, or he failed to do so. Apparently another hero is Keyshawn. How he had the presence of mind, ladies and gentlemen, to get his friends out of that while getting shelled with 39 casings, we will all never understand. Rules for deliberation. You must follow the law as it is set forth in the instructions. I spent a lot of time making sure that when we selected you, that not only were you fair to both the defendant and the state, but that you would promise that you would follow the law. It is so integral, ladies and gentlemen, especially as you deliberate, to follow the law. It will not lead you astray. Just follow the law. And it makes total sense. But even if you think it doesn't, it's not your judgment call. Follow the law. And the law says, if a person starts conflict with you and then clearly indicates that they're trying to get away, you are not allowed to shoot them, and certainly not in the back. You cannot shoot at their vehicle as they're leaving. There'll be other rules for deliberation. You'll see them. But most important, that I bolded at number 7, your verdict cannot be based on prejudice, bias, or sympathy. You all promised that you wouldn't do that anyway. We picked people who, the minute they said sympathy, can't do it, bye-bye, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for your time. Because you have to be able to separate feelings that you might have about individuals and what the law requires and what the facts say. And you all said you could do that. So just do it. Follow the law. It's not about whether or not he's an ex-NFL player or an ex-celebrity or whatever else. It's about what he did that night to somebody else's family. Weighing the evidence. You'll get an instruction on that. The things that you should focus on. I'm not going to go through every single one with you. I recognize that you have the packet and you'll read it as you go through. But I want to talk to you about lesser included offenses. And Madam Clerk, if you can start taking from the other section. I want to start from the bottom. The least charge in front of you for your consideration. It's called aggravated assault. Aggravated assault, like the judge defined for you, that's on page 29 for quick reference if you want to get there, has 4 elements. Travis Rudolph intentionally or unlawfully threatened either by word or act to do violence. Here it says Christopher Lowe because this is his section, but obviously we're talking about Tyler. I'm sorry, not Tyler. We're talking about Keyshawn and Chris here. then at the time, Travis Rudolph appeared to have the ability to carry out that threat. Well, yeah, certainly. Not just carry out the threat. It was full on happening. 3, the act by Travis Rudolph created in the mind of Christopher Law a well-founded fear that violence was about to take place. No, we passed. Forgive the way I phrase that. Taking it a little Florida here. We way past whether or not violence is about to take place. It is happening. And 4, the assault was made with a deadly weapon. Yeah, assault rifle, that counts. So that's the bottom. We know all those things are proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's take it up a notch. Aggravated battery is the next one. For ease, let's see. Let's go to count 2. Page 22. Here, aggravated battery has 2 main elements. So basically, it is a battery, which is intentionally touching or striking someone or intentionally causing bodily harm to someone. But what makes it aggravated is the fact that either a weapon is used or there's great bodily harm, permanent disfigurement, permanent disability, or other. Clearly, we have that beyond a reasonable doubt. We know Tyler was actually struck, injured. Even as he testified before he was uncomfortable in pain from that wound, especially the one to his hip. He'll live with that one. Next one up, second-degree murder. Second-degree murder has 2 elements. Travis Rudolph, next page over, you can flip it, page 21. Travis Rudolph intentionally committed an act which would have resulted in the death of Tyler Robinson, or Keyshawn, or Chris. Their names are just not here because they have their own section. Except that someone prevented him from killing them, or he failed to do so. Well, we know that someone who prevented him from doing so, at least for Tyler, was literally the force of himself getting out of that car and running like hell and trying to get aid and finally being able to successfully get to the hospital and have that surgery. That's what saved his life, not Mr. Rudolph stopping. We also know that for the rest of them, what stopped it was Keyshawn literally pulling that vehicle away and driving away as fast as he could until it literally couldn't go anymore. A 10-minute drive for him took 7 minutes because he is scared and speeding to get his friend to the hospital. Unfortunately for him, he has to live with the memory of knowing that he never made it. I want to talk about imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind, because that is what differentiates first-degree murder from second-degree murder. First-degree murder is premeditated, second-degree murder, depraved mind. Imminently dangerous to another, demonstrating a depraved mind. That has 3 parts. A person of ordinary judgment would know that this particular thing is reasonably certain to kill or do serious bodily injury to another person. Well, yeah, shelling a car with 39 bullets, certainly. Yes, we have that. Number 2 is done from ill will, hatred, spite, or an evil intent. Certainly ill will. He's upset. He's mad. Again, this isn't about whether or not he had the right to be mad. It's what you do with that anger when you have it. Because legally, you're not justified to do this. Then number 3 is of such a nature that the act itself indicates an indifference to human life. Shelling a car with 39 things, as you know, 4 people are in it. Whew. Does that ever evidence or indicate an indifference to human life? So we have that beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's go up to the next one, first-degree murder, or attempted first-degree murder. Again, I told you what separates that is this notion that a person must have some premeditated design to kill. Second-degree murder doesn't care whether or not you wanted to kill him or not. Just that at the time, that's what you intended to do, and you have the elements for depraved mind, indifferent to human life. First-degree murder wants you, requires it of the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. that there's some kind of thought that you wanted to kill. You wanted to, quote, exterminate, end. I want to talk to you a little bit about some instructions that you're going to get that might seem a little confusing in the self-defense instructions section. And one of them has something to do called principle, okay? So generally speaking, principle theory is about when several people are involved in carrying out a particular act, and they're all guilty because they intended for the act to carry through. For instance, we all decide that we want to commit a robbery. I'm the driver, you have the gun, another person perhaps checks out the area. All of us in concert are making sure this robbery happens the way we want it to happen. It is possible for you all to be found guilty. Now, it's strange, I know, because the principle theory here is about not Mr. Rudolph, because clearly he's not acting in concert with anybody else. He's by himself with his 6R rifle. It's now asking you to consider whether or not the victims in this case were committing crimes. Whether or not that's the reason Mr. Rudolph had for using force against them. And the same question that you were confronted with at the beginning, is this self-defense, will come back again. At the time that Mr. Rudolph was about to shoot and did in fact shoot, were these individuals, Keyshawn Jones, Tyler Robinson, Sebastien Jean-Jacques, and Chris Lowe, committing felonies against Mr. Rudolph? The answer is a resounding no. It is a resounding no. It is an offensive no. They were fleeing for their lives. The video proves that beyond a reasonable doubt. One moment, Judge, to confer with co-counsel. So before I leave you, I'm going to ask you to not just remember everybody's testimony, take a look at all the exhibits that the state has provided for you, and evaluate this case properly, looking at the law, and actually taking the time to consider what was happening at the time that Mr. Rudolph chose to shoot his firearm, because that, frankly, is the most important part of all of this. Whether or not he cheated on his girlfriend, whether or not he was or was not angry with her for smashing a PlayStation or any of that stuff, that is not the point of this case. That's all for context. I told you at the beginning that there will be things at the end of this case that will not be that important. It will not be that important. I wasn't trying to psych you. It's a fact. This case comes down to, can you pursue people who you might think started it? Can you pursue them even as they're running away and driving away and shoot them and kill them dead? The answer is a resounding no. Bring back a verdict of guilty each count. Thank you so much.